macroeconomy. Today we're going to talk about national debt. Now when we talk about national debt, mostly it comes because the government is running consequently on deficits. And when we talk about deficit, it simply means the government budgeted expenditure is greater than its revenue through taxation. So accumulated deficits will lead to national debt because it simply means government is not funding its expenditure through taxation. It's funding it through borrowing.
What?
Borrowing.
Borrowing.
Do you understand? So there's a budget which talks about your expenditure and your revenue. Expected revenue, expected expenditure. But if you continue to run on deficit, it simply means you're sourcing for fund elsewhere to fund
Your spending.
your spending. And when it accumulates, it leads to national debt. So national debt is the total amount of money the central government has borrowed to cover up for budget deficits, representing accumulative outstanding debt owed to creditors, including citizens, foreign government, and institutions. So government can as well borrow from individuals, from citizens, from foreign lenders or institutions. So whatever the case might be, in as much as governments have borrowing because of its deficits, it's going to lead to national debt. So it's going to be the debt for everyone, which has to be paid by citizens. So because government there's no money anywhere, government fund its expenditure through taxation. So national debt tends to increase during recession or economic downturn. Recession or economic downturn. Yeah.
Or the cycle is before the recession.
Yeah, downturn. So during this period of time, there's unemployment, there's less revenue for government or for firms, there's less spending from individuals, purchasing power for individuals are reducing, disposable income is falling. At this point in time, government will not have enough revenue from taxation because individuals will not be earning more. The income tax or taxes from income would reduce, taxes from profit would reduce. So at this point in time, it reduces government revenue.
And therefore, they will implement an expansionary fiscal policy.
Yeah, why expansionary fiscal policy?
Because the revenue will decrease and spending will increase.
A policy solves a situation.
Yes.
But here we're talking about what brings about the situation.
Yeah.
So what brings about this situation is that there's a downturn. Downturn is a decline in economic activity. The economic growth rate is coming slowly, getting down slowly. At that point in time, it is possible that income reduces for firms. Income revenue reduces for firms. Profit would as well reduce. They won't be able to pay as much as profit that they used to pay to government. So government has a budget to fulfill. But in the course of fulfilling these, government has to turn to elsewhere to seek funds to fulfill their budget, and that leads to national debt. And that is the point here. But expansionary fiscal policy is talking about ways in which government can increase aggregate demand.
Yeah.
That's expansionary fiscal policy. But in this situation, in this case, there is a situation which is national debt, which might as well be as a result of increasing aggregate demand anyway.
Yeah.
But all we need to know here is that there's national debt, which is based on government borrowing, increasing government borrowing to fund its budget from individuals, from foreign lenders, from institutions. And most of the time, deficit occurs because there's downturn, probably recession. I think the point is clear. So from there we go on to, during economic downturn, government expenditure rises in a rapid rate than tax revenue. Because at that point in time, there's economic decline. Government will not be making revenue as it used to be. VAT reduces, corporation tax reduces, income tax reduces. So whatever tax that will bring about that that's supposed to occur based on increasing economic activity would reduce. And that simply means government have to turn elsewhere because the expected tax revenue that will be used to fund government spending is reduced. And that brings about national debt. I think the point is clear. So what are the key notes about national debt? The first one is the composition. What brings about national debt? It is based on internal and external debt. For internal debt, it's about domestic creditors, individuals within the country, firms, lenders within the country. That is internal debt. Then we have external, which is owed to foreign lenders. So government could owe individuals within the country or institutions within the country or outside of the country. So there's internal and external debt.
One example of a foreign lender would be the IMF.
Yeah, International Monetary Fund. If some countries do give loans out. Some countries do help them.
Also, look for some countries they own bonds and they get.
But not only IMF, it could be European Union. EU could also
Mostly
be
government.
Yeah. So that's the composition. It comprises of both internal and external debts. I think that point is clear.
Okay.
Now we have deficit versus debts. Deficit versus debt. A deficit is the annual shortfall between expenditure and revenue. The shortfall, that's the difference in terms of revenue and expenditure. So here it simply means your expenditure is greater than your revenue. That brings about deficit. Your revenue, your expenditure is greater and your revenue is less. So revenue expenditure is greater than revenue. This will bring about deficits. I think you get that. So an accumulated deficit leads to what? Debt. So look at why a debt is the total of all past unpaid deficits. Because as soon as a government has deficit, it simply means the government is continue to fund its budget or its spending through borrowing. And this will continue to accumulate and it becomes a national debt, a large one. Yeah. I think you understand deficit versus debt here. Deficit is a shortfall on expenditure and revenue. And for debt is the total of unpaid deficits, accumulated deficits, unpaid from the past. Then the instrument. So government have to manage this. So for government to manage it, government need money from citizens, from elsewhere. And what can they do? They might come up with issuing bonds, treasury bills, and notes. So government will come up with this instrument. They put a face value on them. They put a value on them. They sell it at a discount to individuals to get money from them. Do you understand? So that is what these instruments are about. It allows government to have more money from people.
Then when the creditors want the money back, they're going to pay the money with the interest.
Yes.
It's a small interest, but a guaranteed one.
Yeah, and it's a secured investment.
Yeah.
You call it a secured investment because it's government, it's issued by government. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Any question about that?
No.
Then, this deficit, this debt has a negative impact on the economy. So that takes us to the disadvantages of a large or increasing national debt. The first one is high interest rate. A large national debt will bring about high interest rate as credit availability reduces for both private sector and government. If government continue to go towards lenders within the country for loans, it simply means the availability of credit starts reducing. And if the availability of credit starts reducing, the demand for credit will be more than the supply of credit. And that will bring about a high interest rate. So a large national debt means lenders will not even have enough money to give out to new borrowers or potential borrowers. And because there's no funding for potential borrowers, it simply means there's no credit availability for potential borrowers, it increases the interest rate. So for both the private sector and the government. So that's why we have high interest rate. Do you get the point then?
Yes. Because the financial market is the same as a good interest market. It has a price and a quantity part. Basically, if the quantity demanded has been supplied, it increases.
It increases, yes. And when government continue to turn to lenders within the economy for funding,
Yeah.
for credit. Simply means the credit available to private sector would fall.
That's true.
And that means the price of credit increases, interest rate increases. I think the first one is clear. Right?
Yes.
The second one, increased tax burden. Government has a debt to pay. So government has to service the debt and also try to reduce the debt. In the course of doing this, government might have to increase tax revenue. And increasing tax revenue simply means low economic activity.
Yeah, lower demand.
Yeah. If government is increasing income tax, it reduces purchasing power. If it increases, it reduces purchasing power, which simply means individuals will stop buying as they used to buy. Firms will not be selling as they used to sell. Revenue would fall for firms, and they have to pay high taxes. This becomes a disincentive for them to produce.
Yeah.
So that means low economic activity. Unemployment would also rise.
Excuse me?
Unemployment would also rise
Yeah.
as a result of that. Do you understand increased tax burden here? The third one, reduced fiscal flexibility, opportunity cost. Government has a lot of debt. Government would not have the financial capability to respond to crisis. Maybe there's natural disaster, there's economic downturn that government would as well put in finance or subsidize for to increase aggregate demand. Government will not be able to do that because government is running on the debt already. So that's reduced fiscal flexibility. Government spending will reduce. Government will not have that flexibility to adjust or to make to spend more because of increasing debt.
I was going to say earlier that national debt is not bad if the economy keeps growing. However,
In relative to the GDP.
Exactly.
Yeah.
However, if the spending is out of control, especially during a pandemic, this might cause the debt to balloon way more than the economic growth.
But most of the time, when national debt, it's all about funding capital investment.
Yes.
Then, in the long term, it will be beneficial.
That's the idea.
Yeah, do you understand? So, because in the long term, it's going to lead to economic growth and economic development.
Yes.
And the next one, which is the last one, is currency depreciation. As soon as debt of a country increases, it discourages foreign investors, whatever investors will not want to invest in such country. And as a result of that, because investors are not coming to your country to invest, the demand for your currency would reduce. And that brings about a depreciation in your currency. But it's an advantage in any way because as soon as your currency depreciates, export prices reduces. So foreign customers will find it interesting and attractive to buy from you. But the problem here is that importation, the price of importation increases. And if such country is a country that relies heavily on importation of goods or importation of components or raw materials for production, it will lead to inflation. And that is exactly
this is a cost push inflation.
Cost push inflation,
Yes, and this is also happening here in Libya as well. If you notice, the past 2 months, prices have been going up and up and up.
So this is about national debt and its consequences to an economy.